lecture, and in today's video lecture I'll be solving previous year's NEET questions and discussing the answers. And this is for the chapter, as you can see on your screen, locomotion and movement, and we are in part 2 of the series. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so question number 1. Which of the following is not a function of the skeletal system? This appeared in 2015. Okay, let's go through our options. A. Production of body heat. B. Locomotion. C. Production of erythrocytes. D. Storage of minerals. Okay, so we have to find not a function of the skeletal system. So clearly it is A. Production of heat. So skeletal system is not responsible for production of heat. Let's go through the discussion. So joints in the body create movement for locomotion. Okay, so the skeletal system, if you see, the bones are connected to each other and so they create joints. Okay, they form joints like this. Okay, and so that can be used for movement. Now this movement can be used for locomotion. Locomotion is the movement of a body from one point to another point. So if you want to move from A to B, obviously you need to move your joints, okay, your body from one place to another, correct? So the skeletal system helps in locomotion. So bone marrow is responsible for erythropoiesis. Okay, so like in the question it said that whether skeletal system is responsible for erythropoiesis. Yes, the bone marrow in the bones is responsible for erythropoiesis. 98.9% of calcium and 85% of phosphorus are stored in the bones. Okay, so yes, there is mineral storage. Okay, it is responsible for mineral storage also, like calcium and phosphorus. Now the thing that it doesn't do is create body heat. Okay, the body heat is usually created by the metabolic processes in the cells. You know that there are many cycles that are happening inside the cells, which in result forms ATP. Now when ATP is used, heat is created. Okay, ATP is like the currency of energy. Okay, and so when you use that, heat is produced. Okay, and also by contraction of muscles. So when you move your muscles, there is heat also generated over there. Obviously muscle cells also, there are a lot of processes that are going on inside the muscle cells also, and so that also produces heat. When you contract your muscles also, it produces heat. Okay, so body heat is not created by the skeletal system. So if we go back to our question, yeah, so clearly production of body heat is the right answer. It is not a function of the skeletal system. Okay, skeletal system will only include bones, not the muscles. Whereas locomotion, yeah, like I told you, they move from one point to another point. The joints are formed between two bones, and so that helps in the movement or the locomotion of a body. Production of erythrocytes, yes, the bone marrow in the bones, they are responsible for erythropoiesis. And storage of minerals, calcium and phosphorus mainly, these bones store that. Okay, so clear? This, if you knew your theory well, you should have been able to answer this question, right? Let's go on to the next question. Okay, question number 2. Glenoid cavity articulates. This appeared in 2015. It was a cancelled exam, I guess. I've already discussed this in part 1, so you should be familiar with this, what glenoid cavity is. So let's go through our options. A. Clavicle with scapula. B. Humerus with scapula. C. Clavicle with acromion. D. Scapula with acromion. Okay, so we know that the glenoid cavity is present in the scapula, but it articulates with the humerus. Okay, it articulates with the humerus. So clearly B is the right answer for this. So if you got B for the right answer, I would suggest you solve this along with me. If you're watching this, whenever you're watching this video, if you can pause the video, think about your answer and come back to this. Okay, let's go to the discussion. So, the lateral or the glenoid angle of scapula is broad and contains the glenoid cavity or fossa. So, if you look at the lateral side of the scapula, okay, it is broad. It contains the glenoid angle. Okay, it contains the glenoid cavity or the fossa. The lateral side's got the glenoid angle, and it articulates with the head of the humerus. I've got a diagram also. I think I've showed it to you. Yes, of course, it forms the shoulder joint. Okay, the shoulder joint over here, if you can see. Okay, yeah. So I've got a better diagram for this. So you can see here. So what you're seeing here, ignore the red part. Okay, these are the muscles that are attached to the bones. Ignore that part. But what you see here is the glenoid cavity, this blue portion over here. Okay, and what you're seeing here is the lateral side of the scapula. Okay, the lateral side of the scapula, and what you see here is a glenoid cavity, okay, to which the humerus articulates with. Okay, so I thought a diagram would help you visualize better. So to go back to your question, yeah, so the glenoid cavity articulates humerus with scapula. Okay, clear? This is there in NCERT also. Please read the theory properly. And now you can see a diagram, so you can visualize. Now you remember that, okay, yes, this is how it looks. Okay, clear? So let's move on. So the direct question, if you knew anatomy well, you should have been able to answer this question. Skeletal system is mostly anatomy, so you should remember where what is located, right? And what connects with what. Okay, so question number 3. 3 of the following pairs of the human skeletal parts are correctly matched with their respective inclusive skeletal category, and 1 pair is not matched. Okay, it's a very long sentence. Identify the non-matching pair. Okay, this appeared in 2011. Okay, so let's go through our options first. You have to identify the non-matching pair. Please read the question carefully. Okay, so you have pair of skeletal parts and you have the category. So to find the non-matching pair, fine. A, sternum and ribs, axial skeleton, which is correct. Clavicle and glenoid cavity, pelvic girdle, no, that is incorrect. So probably B is the right answer. We'll go through the other options. C, humerus and ulna appendicular skeleton, yes. D, malleus and stapes, ear ossicles, yes. So clearly it is B. Okay, let's go through our discussion. So sternum and ribs form a part of the axial skeleton. Okay. Clavicle and glenoid cavity form a part of the pectoral girdle. We just discussed the glenoid cavity. So clavicle and glenoid cavity forms a part of the scapula. Okay, glenoid cavity is part of the scapula. Okay, and clavicle and scapula form a part of the pectoral girdle. Humerus and ulna form a part of the appendicular skeleton. So just remember, axial skeleton is the mid portion, okay, and the appendicular skeleton are the limbs, okay, the legs and the arms, okay, and the axial skeleton is the mid portion, the head and the sternum, the thoracic part, okay, and of course your pectoral and pelvic girdle. The pelvic girdle is bottom, pectoral girdle is on top, and your limbs form the appendicular skeleton part. Okay, clear. And malleus and stapes are ear ossicles. There's one more ear ossicle called incus, okay, and there are 3, they appear in 3 pairs, okay, that's how they are arranged, okay, there are 3 pairs. There's 3 here, there's 3 on the other side, okay, they're ear ossicles. So if you go back to our question, yeah, so clavicle, and they've written glenoid cavity, okay, glenoid cavity, please remember, is part of the scapula, okay, they could trick you into that. So you need to remember all the parts of the pectoral girdle. They could ask anything. They could ask acromion, they could ask coracoid process, they could ask spine. Okay, they're all part of the scapula. So please remember this. Okay, clear? Again, like I said, oh yes, a skeletal system is anatomy, to just remember where everything is placed. So what you see here is the anterior view, okay, the front portion of the pectoral girdle. Okay, so unfortunately you can't see the scapula here, but I've already showed you a previous diagram in part 1, and I think I have it in this presentation also. But here you can clearly see the scapula. Just ignore the muscles, you don't need to remember the muscles for meat. Just remember the clavicle, how it is placed. You can see the first rib also over here. This is just for your information, all right? Okay, so for you to understand, just don't dwell too much on this, don't waste your time too much on this, just for you to visualize. Okay, so this is what a pectoral girdle looks like. Okay, clear? This was also easy question. Okay, if you knew your anatomy well, you should have been able to answer this question. Okay, so question number 4. Which of the following components is a part of the pectoral girdle? Okay, the pectoral girdle is back again. This appeared in 1994. It's a pretty old question. Let's go through our options. So A, sternum, B, acetobulum, C, glenoid cavity, D, ilium. Okay, clearly we just discussed this. C, glenoid cavity. Okay, I think they like glenoid cavity too much, but anyway, so your answer should be C. Okay, glenoid cavity. Clearly from these options, glenoid cavity is the right answer. Let's go to the discussion. So the pectoral girdle consists of clavicle and scapula. Okay, so we've already discussed this. I will not waste too much time on this. This is pretty direct question. There's no need to waste too much time. Glenoid cavity forms a part of the pectoral girdle, right? I've already explained this to you, and yeah, let's move on. Okay, so question number 5. The cervical vertebrae in human is, this appeared in 1993. Okay, so cervical vertebrae is A, same as in whale, B, more than that in rabbit, C, double than that of horse, D, less than that in giraffe. So cervical vertebrae in humans is same as in whale. Okay, if you've got the right answer, means you've read your NCERT very well. Okay, you know your NCERT very well. The answer is A. Let's go to the discussion. Now, the number of cervical vertebrae is same in all mammals. Okay, this is there in NCERT. Okay, this is there in NCERT. Please go back and read your theory. The number of cervical vertebrae is same in all mammals, of course, including human beings. Now, since whale is a mammal, it is same as in human beings. Okay, so the number of cervical vertebrae in human beings and in whale will be the same. Okay, but whale is also a mammal. So clearly, if you go back to your question, yes, cervical vertebrae in humans is same as in whale. The giveaway was that all of them given here are mammals. Rabbit is a mammal, horse is a mammal, giraffe is a mammal, but obviously it's not more than or double that. If you knew that theory, the fact, then obviously according to that, A is the right answer. Okay, clear? Let's move on. Okay, so here I put a diagram of the human vertebrae, and what you can see is the lateral view. So clearly you can see here it has 7 cervical vertebrae, and I'm sure you've seen this same diagram in NCERT also. You need to know the numbers very well. Okay, 7, 12, 5, 1, 1. Okay, this very well. Okay, clear? Let's move on. Okay, so question number 6. Long bones function in, this appeared in 1993. So long bones function in support. A. B. Support erythrocyte and leukocyte synthesis. C. Support and erythrocyte synthesis. D. Erythrocyte formation. So clearly, you know, the skeletal system is responsible for support. Locomotion, yes, it supports the body, supports the muscles that are there, it supports the organs that are there inside our body. The skeletal system is very, very important. It forms the framework of our body, right? You need a framework over which you can put the muscles, you can put the tendons, the ligaments, the organs, you know, all of that. So yes, support is one very important function. And of course, the bones are responsible for hematopoiesis. Okay, so they are responsible for erythrocyte and leukocyte synthesis. So apart from support, they are also responsible for blood cells formation. Okay, that happens in the bone marrow. Okay, so answer is B. Okay, let's go to the discussion. Okay, so let's understand a little bit of the structure. I've just put a little bit of structure on what long bones look like and what do they do. Okay, so long bones have an elongated shaft, okay, called the diaphysis, sorry. So that's the middle portion, and they have two expanded ends called epiphyses, okay, which are smooth and articular. Okay, they connect with the other bones. Now, typical long bones include humerus, ulna, radius, femur, tibia, fibula, right? The miniature long bones include metacarpals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Okay, they have only one epiphysis. Now, there are also modified long bones. Okay, they have no medullary cavity. The medullary cavity is in the middle. Okay, like clavicle and body of vertebrae. So, these are the different types of long bones present in our body. Now, the medullary cavity is filled with red or yellow bone marrow. So, at birth, the marrow is red, okay, everywhere, okay, and performs active hemopoiesis, right? But then, as you grow older, okay, as age progresses, as you become an adult, the red turns to yellow, okay, it becomes yellow bone marrow and loses its power of hemopoiesis. But in sternum, ribs, vertebrae, and skull bones, the red marrow is found throughout the life. Okay, so yeah, this is a structure of a typical adult long bone, adult bone. So you can see the periosteum, you can see the cortex, you can see the medullary cavity, which I was just talking about, where it has the bone marrow. Okay, and you can see this epiphysis part. Okay, and this is the lateral view, as in if you cut it off, this is what it will look like, okay, inside. So yeah, this is what it is. And to answer your question, it was quite simple. Question was quite simple. Long bones function in support erythrocyte and leukocyte synthesis. Okay, not only erythrocyte, also leukocyte. Okay, clear? Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so number 7, question number 7. Number of cervical vertebrae in camel is, this appeared in 1993, A, more than that of rabbit, less than that of rabbit, same as that of whale, D, more than that of horse. Okay, we've already discussed this. So, camel is a mammal, right? It belongs to the class of mammals, and it will be same as that of whale. So clearly answer is C. We have just discussed this. So answer is C. Let's put the discussion. So there are 7 cervical vertebrae in mammals. So since camel and whale belong to the same class, they have the same number of cervical vertebrae. Clear? It was direct, right? No need for much discussion here. And I've already discussed this previously. We just got a question related to this. Okay, so please read the NCERT carefully. And for this, you also need to know your animal kingdom very well. Okay, because animal kingdom, obviously, you know the different phylums and different class that all the animals have been divided into. So if you knew that also very well, you knew this theory very well. It's a combination of both chapters. Okay, so could answer this question. Okay, so question number 8. A deltoid ridge occurs in, it's appeared in 1990, quite old question. A. Radius, B. ulna, C. femur, and D. humerus. Now the deltoid ridge part, it's a part of the bone which occurs in the bone humerus. Okay, it occurs in the arm, the humerus bone in the arm. Okay, so your answer is D. Okay, let's go to, yeah. So don't need to explain much. So what you can see here is the humerus. Okay, this part over here, you can see the scapula here. You can see that it is connected to the glenoid cavity here, and it moves down over here. Now what you see is a deltoid ridge over here. Now the ridge is actually a projection. Okay, when they say ridge, deltoid ridge, or any other ridge, it's actually a projection. And deltoid tuberosity over here means the part where the muscle attaches to it. Okay, the part where the muscles attach to it. So the deltoid ridge is found in the humerus. Please remember this as a fact. Yeah, so this is how it is present in the human skeletal system. Okay, it is just for fact. Can't really use any logic here, but that's how it is. All right, so if we go back to our question, yeah, the deltoid ridge occurs in humerus. Just remember that. Clear? Let's move on. Okay, question number 9. An acromion process is characteristically found in this appeared in 2005. Okay, so we have an acromion process, and this A, pelvic girdle of mammals, B, pectoral girdle of mammals, C, skull of frog, D, sperm of mammals. So acromion process, we've already discussed this. It occurs in the pectoral girdle of mammals. Okay, so your answer should be B. Okay, let's go to the discussion. So the acromion process of scapula. Okay, it articulates with the acromial end of the clavicle to form the acromioclavicular joint. I've already discussed this in part 1. Please go and watch that video also. Yeah, pretty direct. Yeah, like I said, anatomy is usually just understanding how everything is arranged, okay, in your system, in your body. So just remember the acromion process is present in the scapula, and scapula is part of the pectoral girdle. So this is like a very important question, like pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle. You need to know what are the parts of the pectoral and the pelvic girdle. For that, please go and read NCERT, right? Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar. If you watched my part 1, you're familiar with this. Okay, so you have acromion over here, and you have the acromial end over here. Okay, so what you see here is the scapula, what you see here is the clavicle. This is the scapula, this is the clavicle. Okay, so you have one side attaching to the other side. All right, clear? Okay, let's move on. Okay, see here, you can see here the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. We just discussed that. Okay, this part over here. Okay, next question. Okay, so question number 10. What will happen if ligaments are torn? This appeared in 2002. So you have A, bones will move freely at joint and no pain. B, bone less movable at joint and pain. C, bone will become unfixed. D, bone will become fixed. Okay, so this kind of question is a very clinical sort of question. So if the ligaments are torn, now you know ligaments connect one bone to another, correct? Obviously you can say from experience, if somebody who's playing a lot of sports, or even a pull or a stretch somewhere like that could an accident could tear your ligament, right? um, Obviously it will pain. So pain is of course one of the symptoms that you feel, and of course the bone becomes less movable at joint. Okay, so especially like for example the knee joint. Okay, so sports person or those who play cricket or football or any kind of sports, and they tend to have knee joint injuries. Okay, and during that time of course they will feel a lot of pain. The person feels a lot of pain. At the same time, your knee joint will not be able to move like it should. Okay, so you can remember, you can move your knee joint up and down and sideways. Okay, sideways like this and up and down. So if there's a ligament tear, you will not be able to move it freely, okay, from side to side or up and down. So the bone is less movable at joint whenever there's a ligament tear. Obviously, I think if you really didn't know, then I guess the pain part would be a dead giveaway. It would be a little obvious that they put pain in one of the options. So you can choose B. And of course, B is the right answer. Okay, let's go to the discussion. So ligaments connect one bone to another bone, and the ligament tear results in pain and limits movement of the joint. Okay, like I gave you an example of the knee joint, not just the knee joint, any kind of joint. You have a shoulder problem, okay, you have a ligament tear there, again you would feel a lot of pain there, and also you will not be able to move it like you ideally would. Okay, so yeah, that's the answer. Let's move to the next question. Okay, so question number 11. Sternum is connected to ribs by, and this appeared in 2000. Okay, so A, bony matter, B, white fibrous cartilage, C, hyaline cartilage, and D, areolar tissue. Okay, so sternum is connected to ribs by hyaline cartilage. Okay, clear? This was very obvious. Your answer is C. So hyaline cartilage connects the sternum to the ribs. Okay. Now this type of hyaline cartilage is called costal cartilage. Okay. There are different types of hyaline cartilage. One of them, this type that connects the sternum to the ribs, is called the costal cartilage. So this is a typical structure of the hyaline cartilage. Okay. This is what it looks like. Okay, so you can see here in the middle, you see the chondrocytes that are clustered together. Okay, in lacuna spaces. Okay, the lacuna spaces, they have the chondrocytes clustered. Now this occurs in the middle of the cartilage. Okay, this occurs in the middle of the cartilage, and as you move towards the periphery, the side, you see the chondrocytes are arranged differently. They are arranged in a parallel form. Okay, in a vertical parallel form, not like clusters like it is in the middle of the cartilage. So as you move towards the periphery, you see the chondrocytes arranged this way. Okay, I just wanted to show you what a hyaline cartilage looks like. Okay, so this is what it is. Obviously the matrix is embedded with collagen fibers. Okay, and what you have over here are the chondrocytes. Okay, and they are differently arranged. In the center of the cartilage is differently arranged. To the side, in the periphery, it is arranged differently. Okay, so this is what a typical hyaline cartilage looks like. Okay, and hyaline cartilage also has a very rubbery texture. Okay, it is compared to rubber form, and it also has a very glassy appearance. Okay, hyaline cartilage looks like that, like a glassy appearance. Okay, so let's move on. This was to answer your question. Yes, it was quite easy. Sternum is connected to ribs by hyaline cartilage. You need to know, okay, what type of cartilage occurs, whether it's elastic, whether it's hyaline, right, whether it's fibrous cartilage. You need to know that very well. Histology. Okay, so question number 12. Bone related with skull is, this appeared in 2000. A. Coracoid, D. Arytenoid, C. Pterygoid, and D. Atlas. Okay, so bone related with skull is C. Pterygoid. Okay, I don't think this is mentioned in NCERT, but learn it. There's no harm in learning. So bone related with skull is pterygoid. I have a structure of the skull. Okay, this is a structure of the skull. I am not sure if you can see it. What you see here is the inferior view. I'm not sure if you can see the names is what I meant. But now what you see the inferior view is when you put the camera here. Just imagine if you remove the mandible. Okay, this is your jaw. You remove the mandible, all you can see is the maxilla and the bones that are inside the skull. Okay, so you put a camera here and you click a photo. This is what it will look like. Okay, so this red portion over here, just follow my, I don't know if you can see this very clearly. This part, this red portion here is the sphenoid bone, okay, of the skull. Over here is the vomer, okay, the vomer bone. Now these plates over here, okay, these plates, okay, these plates over here is what you see is the pterygoid. Okay, so it forms a part of the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone is quite big. Okay, sphenoid bone is quite big, and this part over here, this red part you see here, is the pterygoid plate. Okay, okay, this part over here. So they are in pairs. Okay, they're present on both sides. Okay, and the sphenoid bone as such, if you take it out, it's like a wing like structure. Okay, in that you will find all the parts. One of them is the pterygoid bone there. So this is it. Pterygoid is a part of the skull. Okay, it is a part of the skull. Can't stress too much on this. Like I said, anatomy, you need to know order. So if you're good at ordering things and placing everything in a consecutive fashion in your brain, then yeah, you're good at it. Yeah, pterygoid. It's not coracoid, it's not arytenoid. Actually, you know what, this is also a very good question. If you can eliminate coracoid, you can eliminate. Yes, it's part of the scapula. Arytenoid is a cartilage that's present in the larynx, and atlas forms a part of the cervical vertebrae. Clearly it is pterygoid, right? If you that is if you knew your theory very very well, and which of course you should know, but this you could eliminate. But clearly you need to know anatomy. Bone related with skull is pterygoid. Okay, clear? Let's move on. Okay, so question number 13. Total number of bones in each limb of a man is, and this appeared in 1998. You're supposed to know this too. Guys, A 24, B 30, C 14, D 21. Total number of bones in each limb. Okay, each limb is 30. Okay, B. Alright, I made your job easy. Please note this down in your notebooks. This is very, 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 very important for your exam for NEET. I have divided axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton into different columns. And as you can see, I have given you how many bones are there in the skull, in the higher bone, ear, ossicles, vertebral column, sternum, ribs. Okay, they all add up to 80. This all adds up to 126. The upper limb, what bones are present? The upper limb, the lower limb, what bones are present? The lower limb, pectoral girdle, and the pelvic girdle. Okay, so this is a very important table. Okay, and you need to study this for the skeletal system and of course for your NEET. So if any anatomy questions that appear in the exam, you can refer to this table. Okay, how many bones are there in this, what appears where, what appears in the upper limb, what appears in the lower limb. which bones are there in the upper limb, which bones are there in the lower limb, okay, which bones are there in the pectoral girdle, the pelvic girdle, and so on. So question number 14. The number of floating ribs in the human body is, and this appeared in 1995. So number of floating ribs: A 3 pairs, B 2 pairs, C 6 pairs, D 5 pairs. So number of floating ribs, obviously the numbers given there are in pairs. So there are 2 pairs of floating ribs in the human body. Direct question, direct answer. Okay, there shouldn't be any confusion here. Okay, and I've already discussed this in part 1 also. There are 2 pairs of floating ribs in the human body. Okay, so what you have is a diagram of the rib cage, and you have the floating ribs. Okay, they are in pairs. Okay, clear? Direct answer. Okay, question number 15. Which one of the following is the correct matching of 3 items and their grouping category? And this appeared in 2009. So you have to find the correct matching. Okay, so you have the items and the group. So A, ilium, ischium, and pubis. So coxal bones of the pelvic girdle. Yes. B, actin, myosin, rhodopsin, muscle proteins. No. Cytosine, uracil, thiamine are pyrimidines. No, that's incorrect. Malleus, incus, cochlea, aerosicles. No, that is also incorrect. So A is the right answer. Okay, let's go to the discussion. So ilium, ischium, and pubis are fused together to form coxal bones. Okay, it's part of the pelvic girdle. Okay, there are 2 coxal bones that form a part of the appendicular skeleton. All right, so yeah, here is a good view of the hip bone, and you can see this coxal bones over here, this pubic area over here. So you have ilium, you have pubis over here, and you have ischium. Okay, and you have the pubic symphysis over here. Okay, so you have your ilium, pubis, and this is your ischium. Okay, clear? Okay, anatomy, like I said, you need to know the order, and these form a part of the pelvic girdle. Okay, for your NEET point of view, yes, you need to remember, forget all the other names and all, you don't need to worry about that. For NEET point of view, you need to remember these 3 bones. Okay, ilium, ischium, and pubis. Okay, clear? Let's move on. Okay, let's go back to the question first. I think I've answered this question. Sorry about that. It's pressing the wrong button. Yeah, ilium, ischium, pubis, coxal bones of pelvic girdle. Okay, so question number 16. Which one of the following items give its correct total number? Okay, it's appeared in 2007. A, types of diabetes 3, B, cervical vertebrae in humans 8, C, floating ribs in humans 4, and D, amino acids found in protein 16. I'm sorry, 16. So types of diabetes, there are 2 types of diabetes. Diabetes, if they're talking about type 1, diabetes mellitus, that is, there's type 1 and there's type 2. There are no 3 types. So, and some they are including diabetes insipidus, but we will not go into that. B, cervical vertebrae in humans 8, which it's actually incorrect, 7. C, floating ribs in humans 4. Yes, there are 2 pairs, so that is equal to 4. Amino acids found in protein 16. No, there are 20. Okay, so your answer is C. Okay, so there are 2 pairs of floating ribs. I think we already discussed this. Okay, this is the same question appeared again, okay, in a different form. You don't need to explain much. Okay, you can see the floating ribs over here. Okay, so 11 and 12 over here that you see are the floating ribs. There are two pairs, so 2 into 2. Please remember, when they are writing number of ribs and pairs, okay, don't get confused between that. Okay, it was an easy way to get confused, and you could select the wrong answer. Obviously you know it, but they could confuse you. You know, they write pairs in the question and you could select the wrong answer. So that's a very, it's a very easy way for them to confuse you with the options. So when they say pairs, yeah, there are two pairs, otherwise there are four ribs, there are four bones. Okay, so question number 17. In human body, which one of the following is anatomically correct? Okay, this appeared in 2007. Okay, A, collarbones, 3 pairs, no. B, salivary glands, 1 pair, no. C, cranial nerves, 10 pairs, no. D, floating ribs, 2 pairs, yes. So D is the right answer. For that you need to know the whole human body system. Okay, so the answer is D. Okay, floating ribs, 2 pairs. Okay, there are 2 pairs of floating ribs. We've already discussed this, so this seems to be like a very important piece of information. Remember it. There are 2 pairs of floating ribs. Okay, you can see here, floating ribs are 2 pairs. Okay, so 2 into 2. If they say how many floating ribs are there, then there are 4 bones. Okay, floating rib bones. There will be 2 pairs. Okay, clear? This was also again direct, right? Okay, so we've come to the end of this video lecture, and I hope you've enjoyed today's video lecture, and I hope you've learned something new today. And please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to MJ Neat Biology. And I'm also available on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so you can check me out. Check my profile there, and also follow there for more updates. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video lecture. All right, so bye.